So I have been requested to say a couple of words before the actual session starts, and that is my happy privilege to do so. Friends, on this 31st of December 2023, even as all of us are bringing this year to a close and welcoming the next year 2024, here is our dear and much respected Dr. Timmappa Hegde with us to present this webinar on Bhagavad Geetā for inner strength and fulfillment. Most of you, if not all of you, know the speaker. However, I must briefly say that Dr. Hegde, despite his busy schedule as a neurosurgeon of great reputation in Bengaluru, he is also contributing to spreading of the Vedanta. He has especially attracted a large number of professionals. The circle of friends who constitute Param Vedant, where he is all the time conducting many classes, organizing discussions, making them present on Gita, Upanishads, and so on. That Param Vedant has a number of members who are very well-placed professionals in medicine or engineering or chartered accountancy or whatever. Thus, educated and prominent members of the society are all drawn to Vedanta thanks to the wonderful introduction and other roles that Sri Timmappa Hegde plays. He is an unassuming person and readily mixes with everyone, and it is indeed a great joy to have him in our life in some form or the other. Therefore, expressing my own happiness and with full confidence, I should say, expressing the happiness of all of you, I welcome Dr. Timmappa Hegde to this session, and along with his submissions, his sharing on the Bhagavad Geetā, we also seek his best wishes for the coming year. We want to hear him on maybe some tips on how we may face the next year more wisely than before. Of course, he is free to take the topic in whatever way he likes to. We can rest assured that the next 45 minutes will be a treat to us, refreshing us, giving us a fresh look at this song celestial, this great Bhagavad Geetā. Namaste, Dr. Hegde. We are so happy you are with us. I now request you to get into the topic and speak to us. Om Namo Narayana.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Thank you very much, Swamiji, both for giving this opportunity to present this webinar on a very special day, the 31st of December. And also, you have been so kind in spite of your travel and schedules to be there for this particular meeting. We will begin with a small prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. I would like to explain the meaning of these words. Vakratunda, the Lord Ganesha. This is a prayer referred to Lord Ganesha, whose trunk is Vakra. Vakra means it is twisted. Mahakaya, whose body is huge. Surya Koti Samaprabha, whose brilliance is equal to crores of suns. Niravignam Kurume Deva, O my Lord, please remove all obstacles. Generally, when we come for any study, we anticipate obstacles. And these obstacles can come from three sources. Ādi Daivik, Everything is possible because of the grace of the Lord. Ādi Bhautik, they could be, it's a New Year time, there could be some celebration, there could be noise. And most importantly, Adhyatmik, there could be certain obstacles within us that could prevent. So whenever we make a prayer, we say for this time, 45 minutes or 1 hour, can we have a stay order on the prarabdha karma? Prarabdha karma means whatever I and all of us have to go through. But we make a submission. But during this moment, when we are here for a study, can there be a stay order so that we can have a more useful? If I can make a request to the group, those of you who are not traveling, those of you who are not having dinner, or if you can keep your camera on, my only request is, this becomes more meaningful, it becomes more direct rather than speaking to. Before we begin any talk, it is always appropriate to offer salutations to the Guru Tattva. In our tradition, the reverence that we give to a Guru is the highest. We all respect our teachers. All our teachers, those who have given us education. But the highest teaching that we give is for someone who has given us Brahma Vidya. And in the course of the talk, we will see why we regard our Brahma Vidya Acharyas with such reverence. I will explain this beautiful prayer. This is another Guru mantra. Akhanda mandala karam vyaptam yena characharam tātparyam darshitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. The reference is to that infinite principle, which the seeker has no words to explain. And you have to use some words. Akhanda. Akhanda is that which cannot be divided. For example, space. We cannot divide space. Space is all pervasive. So we are talking about something which is infinite and all pervasive. Akhanda mandala akaram vyaptam. That which is all pervasive. It is everywhere, but when it is all pervasive, it is pervasive within ourselves. Yena chara achara. That which pervades everything, including that which is moving or not moving. Tātparyam darshitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That Guru, that Acharya, who has opened my eyes to the presence of something. And what is that presence? There are two words as students of Vedanta. At some stage, we have to be very comfortable with. Now, for now, it will be only words. I will try to explain as clearly as possible. The words are immanent and transcendental. Now, the word immanent means something that is very intimate. It cannot be closer to you than yourself. Immanent means something that is pervading you. For example, space is all around me. You can see my fingers. In between my fingers also there is space. Now, is there space within my body? Of course, there is space within my body. Within every cell. Now, if you look at an atom, you will see an atom has got nucleus surrounded by electrons. But more than the stuff of the atom, there is space within. In fact, 90% of an atom is space. So that is the meaning of something immanent. This infinite principle that we are referring to. Now I'm able to speak. There is some live force because of which I'm able to speak. You are able to listen. Now we are referring to that. That in Vedanta is called Atma or Brahman. And that Atma or Brahman has got two important qualities. One is it is immanent. It is very close, closer than the closest. In fact, you can call it the real you. But transcendental. Transcendental means it is so intimate, but it is still beyond. For example, I will show you my hand. You are able to see my hand. There is also a light on my hand. This light is unaffected by anything that happens to my hand. Transcendental means, now here we have to think of two different orders of reality. I will explain again. Now, when I have a dream, and in a dream there are so many events, and these dream events do not really affect the person who's dreaming. While I'm dreaming, I have all these kinds of experiences. But then to the dreamer who, once he is awoken, is transcendental. It is not affected. Why? The reality of the dream is of a different order compared to the person who's sleeping and dreaming. Now, when I'm sleeping and dreaming, if something good happens to me, this person who's sleeping and dreaming is not affected. Now, remember these two terms. The infinite principle that we are looking for in all our studies, whatever we call as Brahman or Atman, has this basic problem of being very close to me. In fact, it is me. It is not this body, but the body is only an instrument of usage. Somehow we need to get that. Now, to that guru, to that acharya who has helped me to discover that each of us are not this physical body. This body is only an instrument for us to communicate. For example, a mobile telephone is just the hardware. But then there is something else, the signals that it is able to download and transmit. So we are something else. To that teacher who has helped me to discover this immanent and transcendental, what kind of thanksgiving can I give? Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And to one of the greatest of acharyas and one of the most unassuming, Swami Chidananda ji, my profound respects as I begin this seminar. About 16 years ago, Swami Brahmananda ji asked me to be the chief guest for one of the Geetā Jnāna Yajnas. And I can promise you at that time, I had no idea what the Bhagavad Geetā was. And I thought that, when you're a chief guest, you have to read something about the Gita. For the first time, and it was the second chapter of the Bhagavad Geetā, I had no idea what the Gita was or what these chapters concern. And of course, no knowledge of Sanskrit. But then that vacuum or lacunae forced me to look into the Bhagavad Geetā. And I would think, and what a catalytic moment that was. Because I can say with certainty, what a treasure the whole Bhagavad Geetā is. Being a grihastha, like most of us I'm speaking to, I have not had, whatever responsibilities we had. I didn't have the opportunity to go to a formal Gurukula. I would never had this opportunity to directly listen to a guru. But then today, thanks to technology, we have all the audios of Swamiji speaking on the Gita, on the Upanishads. So all I did was listen to these audios, and it is not from any books. I have never read any books. It is through listening and making notes. That is what is my understanding. Now the Gita is knowledge. How does the knowledge come to us? Through the sense organs and through the mind. That means most of our the Vedas and the Bhagavad Geetā traditionally is heard through the ears. It is called Karna Parampara. That means the teacher will speak to you, you listen to it. But then the actual processing happens in the mind. And therefore, we need a very, very receptive mind. So the teacher can give you the teaching, but the important thing is, do I have a mind that is ready for it? That is why in certain Upanishads, for example, in the Kathopanishad, there is a very nice discussion between the teacher and the student. The boy gets a chance to meet none other than Yamadharmaraja. And he asks a very question. Now, what happens when a person dies? When a person dies, is it that, everything is gone or something survives death? Can you tell me about the mystery? There are some people say there's something survives. Can you tell me about that? Now, the Lord of Death knows these answers. He wants to give. But before he gives, he wants to know, is the student having that kind of a mind that is going to be receptive? And therefore, in the Bhagavad Geetā itself, there are so many verses which tell us how important that we need to be able to strengthen our mind. I will give you references to the 6th chapter. Right in the beginning of the 6th chapter, it looks like a self-help book where there is one verse, verse number 5. Uddaret atmanatmanam na atmanam avasadayet atmaiva atmaivanatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanah. Essentially, it means you have to lift yourself by yourself, which means there is a paradox. It is through your own mind that you will have to be able to get this. And there is another Upanishad, I think it's Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which speaks something very similar. Mana eva manushyanam karana bandham mokshaye. Your mind can be your greatest friend, your mind can be your greatest enemy too. And therefore, right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Geetā, in this whole talk, the talk that I've chosen is how I can use the Bhagavad Geetā for inner strength. That means how I can use it for mind mastery. And once the mind is mastered, you have a wonderful tool available for you. So the Bhagavad Geetā helps you not only to give you skills that can give you all the purusharthas. Purusharthas means all the useful goals in life, but will also help you to strengthen your mind. Right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Geetā, this is an important verse. Now, I will give you references to all these verses, and in your own study, I want you to mark these verses as something specifically important. 14th verse of the 2nd chapter. Now, remember, this is the time when Arjuna is overwhelmed by emotions, and because he's so overwhelmed, he's not able to function. And Krishna wants him to get back his mind. He is weakened by his emotions. So there is this verse, and I love these verses. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you a selection of few verses of the Bhagavad Geetā around which I have strung this whole talk of mine. And this verse goes like this. Matra sparshasu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkaya sitoshna sukha dukkaya Agama pahino anityaha tamstitikshasva bharata. Now, remember this moment when you are fast asleep. When you are fast asleep, what is asleep? Our mind is asleep. That means our sense organs are still open. That means my ears are listening to the traffic noise. My eyes may be closed. My body will feel the bed sheets and the cot. But then I don't know anything. Why? Because my mind is asleep. The moment my mind becomes open, then what happens? Matra sparsha. Sparsha means my sense organs. My sense organs interact with sense objects. Whenever there is an interaction, that means when the moment we wake up, all our sense organs now begin to report to the mind, and the mind gets Sita, Ushna, Sukha, Dukkha, Adaya, etc. Sita means cold, Ushna means heat, Sukha, Dukkha, happy and unpleasant experiences. Shri Krishna gives a very beautiful tip. Agama payino anityaha. All these experiences that you go throughout the day, that means we are beginning a new year, and in the new year, you will have a lot of experiences, some of them pleasant, some of them unpleasant. And Shri Krishna's advice is, remember, they come, they go. They come, they go. They are all impermanent. So, but I want you to be strong. Tam stitikshasva bharata. O Arjuna, if there is some way that you can go through all these, we really do not know what our prarabdha is for the new year. And therefore, one of the best insulation that can give you to be mentally strong is this particular verse. Remember this verse, note down these verses, and see how you can make this verse another important verse for the new year. That means whatever prarabdha that I have to go through this year, I am ready to face it because it is my prarabdha. What do you mean by prarabdha karma? Now, there is, according to the Vedas, there are a law of karma. That means we are a product not only of this life, we are the product of our past life. When we are born, we have come with a certain amount of currency for this life, and that is called our prarabdha karma. It is like when you're sending a child abroad, you give them a certain amount of currency, you give them certain things because you may not have, easy money transfer or something. So you give them a unit so that they have to live their life with that. So our whole life is decided by this unit of prarabdha karma. And remember, our prarabdha karma determines some of the most important things: where I am born, what kind of family, what kind of healthy or unhealthy body, what is my nationality, what is my gender. All these are determined by your prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma also decides the length of my life. That means when you wake up in the morning, we think, what is that which wakes you up? We think it's your alarm clock that wakes you up. But it is your prarabdha karma, because if I have to live a X number of units of life, now in that period of time, my prarabdha karma is divided. That means if my lifespan is so, the karmas, punya and papa have to be exhausted. So while I'm asleep, my prarabdha karma cannot be exhausted. So I have to wake up to exhaust my karma. So as we are waking up to a new year from tomorrow, what is my karma for the next year? I do not know. But remember this verse number 14. Tam stitikshasva bharata. All of us have to be mentally strong. And therefore, there is one beautiful word that you can tell Shri Krishna. Yes. Yes. Whatever I have to go, I am fully responsible for my karma. Now, we will see how the Bhagavad Geetā can make you strong to be able to handle pleasant experiences as well as unpleasant experiences also. Now, toward the end of the second chapter, there is one portion where Arjuna, in fact, the second chapter is like the summary of the entire Bhagavad Geetā. If the second chapter is studied thoroughly, you have a sense of the entire Gita. Arjuna, being very practical person, asked Shri Krishna right in the beginning of the Gita, toward the end of the second chapter, Sthita Prajna Ka Bhasha. That means once a person has internalized spiritual knowledge. Now, we strongly recommend study the Gita, study the Upanishad, study Vedanta. Why? Now, Arjuna wants to know what is the benefit. Now, if a person has mastered all these, Ka Bhasha, what are his characteristics? Kim Prabhasita, how does he speak? Kim Asita, how does he sit? Vrajeta Kim, how does he walk? Essentially, he wants to know what are the lakshanas, or what are the characteristics. Krishna got a beautiful opportunity. He got an opportunity not only to give us the index or the marks of a person with spiritual evolution, but he also gives in those beautiful verses, starting from verses 55 to 72, is one of the, for a student of Gita, it is a treasure. It tells you what are the sādhanās that we need to do to be spiritually evolved. The lakshana, the lakshana means the indicator. Somebody asked a great teacher, what is the indication of a person of enlightenment? Now, if you see Buddhist scriptures, they will say there are some 32 marks of a Buddha. That means, does a Buddha have a certain marks? Now, whenever you see a picture of a holy person, you see a halo around the person. On all the paintings, you will see a halo. This is actually symbolic. It is actually symbolic because a great master who was asked, what are the characteristics of a Buddha? And you know how he answered it? The characteristics of a Buddha is that he has no characteristics. He says, ordinariness is his extraordinariness. That is why the greatness of truly evolved person is their utter simplicity. They can go round through the crowds like a nobody, and yet they are immanent and transcendental. Transcendental means they belong, like all of us, to this world, but they are in a totally different world in a way, because this is the lakshana. And the whole of the Sthita Prajna portion, Krishna answers this in such a brilliant way. He says, Atman evatmana tushtaha. He says, this person is so full of his understanding that he is not this body-mind complex, but Atman evatmana tushtaha. The key word or the key answer for Sthita Prajna Lakshana is this. that Atmaneva, he is so full of himself through his understanding, not in an egoistic sense, but in the understanding that he is the Atma, he is no longer this body. Now, if you look into our own lives, we don't do many mistakes. We do few mistakes, but we do those mistakes again and again. And it is the Sthita Prajna portion that tells us why is that we do these same mistakes again. It says, I may have spiritual knowledge. I may know I'm not this body. But then knowingly, again in the 3rd chapter, Atakenam, why is that a person does papa? Arjuna asks, knowingly, why does a person commit sin? And Krishna answers here that you may have a lot of intellectual knowledge, but the intellectual knowledge has to be converted into emotional strength. And how do you do emotional strength? The entire Sthita Prajna portion consists of 3 things. He says you have to have a certain regulation of your sense organs. You have to be a master of the mind. So, Shama, Dama, and Nidityasanam. Nidityasanam is remembering this teaching all the time. Atman evatmana tushta. Finally, as I said, now sometimes I have to fight with my own mind. My mind wants something to do, but then I know that I should not be able to do it. And you see there is an internal conflict within yourself. And how is the technique for that? So somewhere Sri Krishna, that is in the 7th chapter, verse 14, Sri Krishna uses a nice phrase. He says, my Maya is very, very strong. He says, Mama Maya Durattaya. It is extremely difficult. I have a Shakti called the Maya Shakti, which is very, very attractive. So he says, if you want to overcome something, Mam eva prapadyante Maya Mayam etad tarantite. If you have to cross it, then you will have to surrender to me. So this is a nice promise of the Lord Krishna. He says, my Maya is very strong. That is why you keep succumbing to it. With your own strength, if you're not able to do it, then you let me... Again, in the 2nd chapter, I cannot remember the exact verse. There is a nice verse which says this, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha. Now remember this word, yukta asita matparaha. Remember, I'm in a conflict. I know there's something that I should not do, but my mind is telling me to do that. So if ever you see any picture of the Bhagavad Geetā, you see a chariot, you see those horses, and then you will see Arjuna as the passenger, and you know who is the driver. This is the meaning of that word, yukta asita matparaha. Sri Krishna says, just like Arjuna put me on the driver's seat, why don't you do it yourself? Put Sri Krishna, yukta asita matparaha, and allow me to decide for you. Okay, if I put Sri Krishna on the driver's seat, I should not be a backseat driver telling the driver to go this way. But I have to surrender to the Lord and say, now you are my driver. And if you are going to be my driver, and then there is in the Kathopanishad again, when you have to choose the path, am I going to choose the pleasant path, the path which is called prayas, or the path that I'm supposed to go as per the scriptural doctrine? It is called Shreyas. Now let us come back to the Bhagavad Geetā and see, now this is a great treasure given to us. And our acharyas, our gurus, Swamiji has explained, and in his weekly classes through Shankara Bhashyam, Swamiji is going into great details of the Bhagavad Geetā. Now, what is the essence of the Bhagavad Geetā? Ādi Shankara has said there are so many topics in the Bhagavad Geetā. The Bhagavad Geetā can be used for karma yoga, it can be used for values, it can be used for meditation. But he says the tātparyam, or the central portion of the Bhagavad Geetā, is to get self-knowledge, Atma Vidya, and through Atma Vidya you should be able to get liberation. Now, those who have done commentaries of the Bhagavad Geetā have told us that the essence of the Bhagavad Geetā is the same as that of the Mahavakya in the Chandogya Upanishad. And the Mahavakya in the Chandogya Upanishad, there you have the father and the son discussion. The father is Uddhalaka, the son is Shvetaketu. And in the course of the discussion, many times the father uses this word, Tat Tvam Asi. Now, let us see what the commentators have told us and see those phrases where we are able to pick up Tat Tvam Asi in the whole Bhagavad Geetā. So those commentators have told us few things. That the Bhagavad Geetā can be divided into groups of 6 called Shatkams. So groups of 6, we have Prathama Shatkam, chapters 1 to chapter 6, Madhyama Shatkam, 7 to 12, Charama or Antima Shatkam, 13 to 18. Now, there are certain distinct topics. And where does Tattvamasi come? The first 6 chapters talk about our nature. We have Tvam coming in the first 6 chapters. The next 6 chapters talk about Tatpadartha, or about the nature of God. And from the 13th chapter onwards, I will give you references to all these verses where you have the Asi Padartha. So the commentators will not only tell you, but give you references to where you will find Tattvamasi in the Bhagavad Geetā. Now, the Bhagavad Geetā also gives us 3 important sadhanas. 2 important sadhanas to prepare the mind, and the third sadhana is to give you spiritual wisdom. The first 6 chapters, the Prathama Shatkam, teaches us about Karma Yoga. The 7th chapter up to the 12th chapter prepares us to what is called Upasana or Bhakti. And therefore, this is also a kind of a preparation of the mind for spiritual knowledge. So when there is Karma Yoga and there is Upasana Yoga, the mind is ready for spiritual knowledge. And when the teacher tells us Tat Tvam Asi, which starts from the 13th chapter onwards, so the 13th chapter is Jnāna Yoga. So you got it. The first 6 will talk about Tvam. The next 6 chapters talk about Tat Padartha. And the last 6 chapters talk about the Asi Padartha. The first 6 chapters talk about Karma Yoga. From the 7th onwards up to the 12th, you have about Bhakti, which I will use the word Upasana. And Jnana Yoga comes in the last 6 chapters from 13 onwards. Now, there is an additional topic which is also very important. In the first 6 chapters, they talk about our effort. Now, if you have to succeed in, let's see, one of the resolutions for the new year for a small group of us is, let me have a deeper understanding of the Bhagavad Geetā. Now, if you have to succeed in all this, 3 things are very important. First is called Prayatnam. So the first 6 chapters talk about our effort, and I will give you references to where our effort is supposed to be. The next 6 chapters talk about my effort alone does not work, as I told you, because my mind has its own problems. But then Shri Krishna gives you references to see, he says, my Maya is so strong, it's not easy to cross. Surrender to me, let me do that job for you. So if you can surrender to Shri Krishna promises you, he will give you grace. So let us become that kind of bhaktas to surrender to him. Now, I want this. I want this badly, like a Nachiketa wants. Then it will be Shri Krishna's business to find a guru, to find an acharya, to give you that time, that inclination, so that the spiritual knowledge, I think it is in the Kathopanishad that it is said, spiritual knowledge does not come through going through lectures or through Meda Shakti. I think there's a nice word which says, it will be revealed to you. It is going to be revealed to you. Let us be like Nachiketas. Say, I have a lot of limitations, but I want it. So the Lord will say, don't worry, it will be revealed to you. So that is so the first 6 chapters, they will bring about, especially the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Geetā, there is lots of importance to, we have that Uddaret Atmanam na Atma, Atmaiva Bandhu, Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. So those set of verses talk about your own efforts. Where do you get verses about grace? There is a beautiful verse which talks about grace. And this is not from the Bhagavad Geetā itself, but it's from the Gita Dhyana Shlokas. the Gita Dhyana shlokas, there was a great acharya, but when you have scholarship and bhakti usually don't go together, but rarely it is possible. Madhusudana Swara Saraswati is an example of a great scholar as well as a great bhakta. And being a bhakta and a scholar, he wrote a certain commentary on the Bhagavad Geetā, and the title of that commentary is called Gūಢārtha Deepika. And in the Gūಢārtha Deepika, before he begins his actual commentary, he gives a few verses which are called Gita Dhyana shlokas. And these Gita Dhyana shlokas have become so popular that subsequent authors and texts included the Gita Dhyana shlokas as a prelude to the Bhagavad Geetā. And many teachers recommend that if you study these Gita Dhyana shlokas, you will get a certain grace to study the Bhagavad Geetā. And in that Gita Dhyana shloka, there is a nice verse which says, Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayete girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramananda madhavam. The one who is mukam, the one who cannot speak, can become eloquent. Pangam langayeti girim, the lame can climb mountains. Yat kripa tamaham vande. Now, can you see this is the power of the Lord? So let us realize that throughout in the bhakti portion, that means 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, you will have a lot of bhakti verses come in the 9th chapter also. So about how we can access grace. To succeed in anything, remember 3 things are important. Prayatnam, kalam, and daivam. Now, I will make my efforts. I will seek the Lord's grace in all my efforts. But remember, there is something called kalam also. There is an unit of time. And therefore, let us be open to the third factor. When is spiritual wisdom going to dawn? There is a very beautiful mantra, and to all seekers of things, I would like you to, this is from the Mundaka Upanishad, and personally it's a mantra that I love very much. It goes like this, Vidyate Hridaya Granthi. That means all of us are caught within a certain knot in the heart. And that knot in the heart is called avidya kama karma. Avidya means all of us we are born with a certain capital that I do not know my true nature, avidya. Kama means because I feel that if I accomplish this, then I will be fulfilled. I do not know my true nature that I am already complete, avidya. Kama, then karma. That's why we do all these activities. But one day when the spiritual knowledge dawns, vidyate hridaya granthi. This avidya kama karma is gone. Vidyate hridaya granthi. Chindanti sarva samshaya. Imagine all your doubts are gone. Kshiyante cha asya karmani. All of us not only have this prarabdha karma for this life, there is a huge amount of bank deposits of what is called sanchita karma. Sanchita karma means unused, unmatured punya and papa of past lives, which are so much, which can go on for my punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. But then when spiritual wisdom dawns, that karma quotient is also gone. Vidyate hridaya granthi, chiddanti sarva samshaya, kshiyanti cha asya karmani, tasmin drishte paravare. Why did I jump to it? As I was explaining, prayatnam, kalam, and daivam. Now, the Bhagavad Geetā talks about, I was talking about the Prathama Shatkam talks about the effort, the Madhyama Shatkam talks about the grace, and the last Shatkams talk about values, values. Now, as I said, I'm ready to stop anytime now. I have not given you references at all because I've already finished 35 minutes of my talk. In 5 or 10 minutes, I will wind up. But I would be happy to work in the form of an interaction where you can ask me each of these things, what are those references? But before that, let me tell you what is the real essence that we have to look in the Bhagavad Geetā. And Ādi Shankara says, the real tātparyam is that we should get self-knowledge or moksha. Now, then I do not know what is moksha or what is parama purushartha, then I'm not very clear. Let us be clear about what is this moksha. Moksha is only a word. Another useful translation of moksha is called Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukti means while I am alive, while I am tethered to this body, and this body is full of limitations, because we know my body has got limitations, and each one of us know our own mind, that our mind is full of various vasanas, and some of these vasanas are very strong, and because of these vasanas, it pulls me down. I am tethered to a body which has got a lot of limitations. I'm tethered to a mind which has got its own set of problems. Now, is it possible for a person who is in this body to be a Mukta Purusha? And the teacher says, yes, it is possible. It is possible to be able to come to a state of tripti, utter fulfillment, and to discover Purnatvam. Krishna uses this word in verse 55, I think, correct. Second chapter, Atmaneva Atmana Tushtaha. It is an understanding that I am not this limited body. You know, this body has been given to me. Yeah, I'm very grateful to this body because this body has brought me to a level of spiritual understanding. But this body has its own problems. I will keep it aside. But I am not this body. I am the Atma, or the indweller in this body. And I'm able to speak. You're able to listen because of that Atma, that awareness, that consciousness principle. So I'm that consciousness principle, and that consciousness principle is of the nature of Sat Chit Ananda. That means it is eternal. There is no birth, there is no death for that. And it is the nature of Ananda. Ananda means, the best word for Ananda is Ananta. It has got no limitations. Wherever there is limitations, there is dukkha, there is sorrow. But I know I have no limitations whatsoever. So then what happens? I have to disidentify from the body. And when I disidentify from the body, then whatever happens to my body, and with my body comes my family, with my body comes my profession, with my body comes my possessions. Therefore, whatever happens to my family, or to this body, or to my profession, or to my possessions, should not affect me really, because I am not this body. Now, I will stop here. It may be an abrupt stop, but then I have promised you certain references, and we can have a little discussion, and the rest of the talk can be a form of a discussion where I have left it in the form of loose ends.
Hari Om. Yes, we are waiting for questions from the audience. Please either raise your hands and ask question. Please unmute your mic.
If I have to give you certain guidance, like it is like this. I told you in the Prathama Shatkam is about Karma Yoga. In the Prathama Shatkam, you have about effort. In the Prathama Shatkam, you speak about Tvam Padartha. So can you give me references in the Gita? And in the Madhyama Shatkam, it's about Tat Padartha. In the Antima Shatkam, is about Asi Padartha. Where in the Gita you would get references to and I would mark. You are muted. Please, you will have to unmute Shivaraman. Shivaram Naik. Can you unmute yourself and speak, or has Vibhaji to? Yeah, please go ahead.
I don't have any query as of now. I don't have any query as of now.
Thank you.
Sir?
Go ahead. Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
I listened to all this.
Yes.
I need a practical niyama, or practically how to live every day is, for the beginner or even for others, everybody. What do you do from morning till night, and how to go about this spiritual quest?
Certain sadhanas, madam. let us, as long as we are seekers, let us keep two sets of sadhanas. One is the sadhana of karma yoga. That means let us be sensitive to whatever action that I do, because Shri Krishna says you cannot remain even for a single moment without doing some action. It may be doing action for yourself also. But remember, this body is not you. You are doing a service to this body. And therefore, whatever I'm doing, it is Ishvara Arpana Bhava, Ishvara Prasada Bhava. Then Upasana Yoga. Wherever I get time, when, keep a certain amount of standard prayer time where I will be sitting in forms of meditation, where certainly mantra japa is a very useful technique for us to be able to silence the mind. Now, as I said, the mind can be a great enemy. We should keep the mind engaged somewhere or the other. And I find it personally very useful whenever I'm not doing anything specific, like, throughout the general day, if I can have an audio of some talk going on, then my mind is at least paying attention to that talk. Otherwise, we get into a thought attack and same negative thoughts keep on going. So keep doing Shravanam. It may not be serious Shravanam like, when you're sitting to a talk and listening. And third and very important is, and that's what I wanted to focus in this talk, take one verse from the Bhagavad Geetā and make that verse. Which verse can I take? I'll take one verse from the 13th chapter, because I love this verse. This verse is from the 13th chapter, I think, verse 15. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam. Now, I love this verse, and it's certainly a difficult verse. Through every sense organ, I am experiencing him alone. And I spoke to you for a long time about what is this immanent and transcendent. So the whole of this verse, of all the Bhagavad Geetā verses, one of the most difficult verses to be able to understand, assimilate. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, Sarvendriya Vivarjitam, Asaktam Sarva Britshaiva, Nirgunam Gunabhoktricha. Madam, difficult verse, but I know you've been into the Gita for a long time. Make an effort to take one difficult verse and see how you can understand. And then take one part of that verse, Sarvendriya Gunabhasam, and let the whole day be a Nidityasanam on that verse. You don't have to take the whole verse. That means I'm seeing all of you because of that principle, that Shri Krishna principle, I'm able to see. So let us bring in three things in our life: Karma Yoga, Jnāna Yoga, Bhakti in our own way, and then Niditya.
Thank you, sir.
Hari Om, I have one. This is Praveena. I have one quick question. You said about three things: the effort, kalam, prayatna, kalam, the unit of time, and the third thing?
Daivam, or grace.
Okay.
I told you about that Gita Dhyana Shloka, no? Mukam Karoti Vachalam, how the impossible can be possible because of grace. And I know certainly, I would say, that particular verse, Mukam Karoti, is most relevant to me only. Because, we all know ourselves more than anything else. And if a person with whatever, if I'm able to speak, it's only Shri Krishna that is giving that force to speak.
And one more thing, I know in Sthita Prajna, you also said three things: the senses control, mind control, and the third thing
is Nidityasanam. That means remembering the spiritual teaching all the time. Yukta asita matparaha. I'll give you one key word. I can't remember the verse number, but it is in the second chapter, maybe 58 or something like that. Yukta asita matparaha. Please put me on your driver's seat. Now, let Shri Krishna be the one who takes the final decisions in your life. You can make various suggestions, but then the final execution should be on the word of Sri Krishna or you.
So that means that, as you just mentioned, so if you're putting Krishna in the driving seat, so that means that Ishwararpita Buddhi, right? That
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Hari Om.
Sir, it was Dr. Hegde, excellent. Normally, we have heard about Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnāna Yoga is the breakup of Gita. And you gave a perspective of Tattvamasi. So, this Tattva, you are, that is the English translation. So, what exactly is this Asi, which is the last 6 chapters?
All right.
What is meant by Asi?
All right. Now, the word Tvam means me. Now, in all of us, there is something that is ordinary, there is something that is extraordinary. All right. So that is why when we enter into spiritual domain, there is something called Viveka. Viveka means I have to discriminate. There's a mythological swan. A swan is supposed to have that Viveka Shakti to be able to discriminate between milk and water. Now, in me, there is something that is permanent. There is something that is constantly changing. What is that constantly changing? My body, mind is constantly changing. In me, there is something that never changes. What is that never changes? Janaki Ram, can you see your photograph when you were a 4-year-old boy? Can you remember that picture of your early childhood photograph? Take a look at that photograph. And if you look at that photograph, you will see one thing. Your body has changed, your mind has changed, your thoughts have changed, your intelligence has changed, your friends, your outlook have changed, but you are the same. There is something in, you will say, that is me. But I don't see you in that child, but it is you. So what is there that has been there, which is still in you? So in all of us, that essential part is called Tvam. Now, when you go to Bhagavan or Paramatma, Paramatma is the creator. Paramatma is huge. I cannot compare the wave to the ocean, but in the wave, the essence is water. In the ocean, also the essence is water. So Tat means that. Now, let me look for the essence in Bhagavan, the essence in me, and Asi means they are one and the same. In Sanskrit, the word Asi means something equivalent. Is, I am. So it just means like is. So Tatutvam, I am that.
Thank you very much.
I will, we still have a few minutes. I would like Swamiji to give us something in this context, which we'll remember as message of the Bhagavad Geetā for the new year. So
Dr. Hegdeji, there is something on chat box. Will you please
on the
check it, or you want me to read it?
if you can read it for me, Vibhaji.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It is from someone has written AR. Good to hear Dr. Timmappa Hegdeji. After a few years, thank you for sharing your insights with us. Happy New Year. Hope to hear you again in the new year and years after.
When I class, I'll call back.
Then second is from Mr. Ullas Page, which is most important portion of your talk. I'm unable to speak. Both are the compliments. Yeah, these two are there.
There is no question, no?
Oh, I thought it's a question, but that question mark is in a different way.
We'll listen to Swamiji for a few minutes.
Surely. I really enjoyed your talk, Dr. Hegde, and I am sure all these participants are with me. in expression of that feeling. Now coming to your suggestion that I say a few words which can be some tips for spiritual sadhana for everyone. I would like to say that Gita can be a wonderful tool to again and again refresh ourselves. For as we are now approaching the end of 2023, the English expression comes to our mind, ring out the old, ring in the new, they say. The big question before us is how to do it. How to ring out the old and how to ring in the new. The old meaning our memories, our frustrations, our regrets, and a little bit of our joy at remembering something pleasant. This whole baggage doesn't leave us so easily. I would therefore give a little analogy. Every day we work, and by evening, by late night, we are quite tired. And what refreshes us is number one, good sleep, and number two, in the morning, once we take a bath, many a time we feel like we are totally new. A bath renews us. And I would like to say that if we take a dip, if we take bath in the beautiful spiritual insights of Bhagavad Geeta, it can refresh us. And when we are psychologically refreshed, what looked very hard, bringing out the old, becomes very easy. For the distance between being a very stressed and frustrated person and being a fresh and new person is all in the mind. If the mind is cleansed, we are new, all renewal. You touched upon inner strength and fulfillment and gave very many examples of how Gita teaches us. Therefore, to all our friends who have gathered here at this webinar, I would like to say that study a little bit of Gita. Even we teachers find it very helpful. As a human being, we teachers also sometimes feel quite stressed or tired, or some negative thoughts come to us. But a little of Gita can recenter us. I keep experiencing it all the time. Because summarily, Bhagavad Gita says, when your mind goes to Rajas and Tamas, you will feel miserable. Bring it to Sattva. And how do we bring the mind to Sattva? While answering a question, Dr. Hegde answered that through karma, through bhakti, through yoga, through jnana, through being in touch with the scriptural teachings. It is said there was a devotee who opened the book of Bhagavad Gita, started with Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, and went up to the 14th verse, number 14. The 14th verse in the Gita is where Sanjaya reports that on a chariot to which white horses were tied, Shvetair Hayair Yukte Mahati Syandane Stitau Madhava Pandavaschaiva Divyau Shankau Pradadmatuhu. The reference is to Madhava, Sri Krishna, and Pandava, Arjuna, blowing their conches as they arrive and take their position. They arrive on a chariot driven by white horses. Now, to complete this example about this man, or it could be a lady too, when she came to the 14th verse, she became so emotional. She brought the picture of Sri Krishna and Arjuna in the middle of that battlefield, and she felt overwhelmed, and she forgot everything else. That is the bath I am talking about. Whether it is the sentiment of bhakti towards Madhava, Sri Krishna, or a deep appreciation of a certain insight. For example, in 13th chapter, Sri Krishna says, every one of you is like the pure space or pure sky. No matter what happens in the sky does not get tainted. Rains and dust storm, etc. come and go. Like that, you and I are actually not this mind. We are not this mind, we are the pure awareness. And let me lastly say, clarity about it increases if we regularly study the Vedanta. We become very clear how we are the pure consciousness and not this mind. So, sum and substance of what I have shared with you is refresh yourself on the physical level by daily bath, which anyhow you do. Maybe some of you take baths twice a day in hot places. Likewise, refresh your mind, refresh your entire being with a dip in the nectarine waters of Bhagavad Geetā. You will feel so refreshed. You will feel that stress and strain and worry and fear, etc., just leave you. You will find that you are just so blissful, so unburdened. Get unburdened. Just as a patient has to swallow the pill, should not just bring the pills and keep on the table. Same way, we should not keep the Gita on the table and say, I don't know, I'm so stressed. That is the pill. Read a little Gita. You will find, just as the pill works on the patient having fear or fever or something, you will get refreshed. Very happy to add a few words, my 2 cents, to the wonderful detailed lecture that Dr. Hegde gave. Now back to Dr. Hegde to speak some concluding words, after which I guess Vibha Chaitanya will say something, maybe a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Swamiji. Just a prayer. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha. Sarve santu niramayaha. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vibhaji, please.
It was really very, very enlightening talk. And yes, the main point was that it was really enlightening in a way that whole Gita was capsured. What do you say, we take a vitamin capsule for whole day. That was in this talk of 40 minutes. And especially which you gave about the Prayatna, Kala and Daiva. That Daivam, that was really something very fitting. And that example, and afterwards, even you gave us that Gita is nothing but that Mahavakya Tattvamasi. So everything comes in it. And so it was very difficult to think also that whole Gita can come in 40 minutes and taking the most important shlokas of Bhagavad Gita from Karma Yoga to Bhakti Yoga and finally up to the Moksha. And you gave the definition of moksha also, which was very lucid and easy to understand. That the knots of the heart to be, unknotted or just an understanding of it makes us free. Really, Dr. Hegdeji, it was so good. And we expect you to again and again come to this platform and make us all happy and enlightened together. Hari Om. Happy New Year to all. Hari Om.
Happy New Year to you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Happy New Year, Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Happy New Year to you all. Doctor, thank you so much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Doctor, thanks a lot.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, I explained very beautifully.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Guruji. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Ma, to you also.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all.
And thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
much,
Dr. Hegde.
Guruji.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Hegde.